What would you do if your phone rang and the voice on the other end was your husband from 10 years ago? One call, two timelines, and a devastating truth that could either save her life or destroy everything she thought was real. She thought she had already lost him. She never imagined the past was calling her back. Chapter 1. The Divorce Papers and the Strange Call. The day Anna Reed signed the divorce papers, rain came down over the city as if someone had upended an entire basin of water over the glass towers downtown. She sat in an office so large that every turn of a page could be heard. Across from her was the attorney for the Tate family. To her right was the empty chair meant for her husband. To her left, inside her bag, lay an old silver-white phone she had not touched in 10 years. It had been buried at the bottom of a carton with old photographs, bus tickets, and pens that had long since run dry. She did not know why she had taken it out that morning while clearing the last remnants from the place that would soon no longer be her home, but she had slipped it into her bag anyway. "Miss Reed, if you have no further concerns, you only need to sign the last page." The lawyer's voice was light as dust. Anna lowered her eyes to the line, waiting for her signature. Her name sat beside Julian Tate's, the man who, at 18, had once stood in the middle of a school field with sweat pouring down his face and shouted in front of hundreds of students that one day he was going to marry her. 12 years had passed so quickly that the vow now sounded as if it belonged to another girl's life. The click of high heels came from the hallway. Anna did not need to look up to know who it was. Claire Lane entered first, her pregnancy already obvious beneath a cream knit dress. Julian followed behind in a perfectly tailored gray suit. He was still as handsome as he had been at 25. The only difference was that his beauty had learned to hide its coldness behind a polite smile. "Have you been waiting long?" he asked, as if this were nothing more than a lunch meeting he had arrived late to. Anna closed her pen and said nothing. Claire rested a hand on the back of a chair, glanced down at the agreement, and gave a soft smile. "Anna, I know anything I say right now will sound pointless, but I still hope you'll think it over calmly. What happened between Julian and me, it wasn't something we planned." Not planned. Not planned, and yet she was 7 months pregnant. Not planned, and yet Julian had bought her an apartment south of the river. Not planned, and yet all of their friends had known for half a year, while Anna had been the last person to be told. Julian pulled out a chair and sat down. He lit a cigarette, remembered where he was, then crushed it out again. The motion was practiced, calm, indifferent. "Just sign it, Anna. Dragging this out won't change anything. Take some time off. Go somewhere. If the settlement doesn't feel fair, tell the lawyer." Anna looked at him. "Do you think I'm bargaining?" He leaned back, weariness in his eyes. "And you have every right to be, but you need to admit something too. We haven't fit together for a long time." He said it quietly, as though time were at fault instead of him. Anna picked up the pen. Just as the nib touched the paper, the old silver-white phone inside her bag began to vibrate. In the still office, the sound was sharp enough that everyone turned to look. Anna froze. The phone no longer had a working SIM card. No one even knew the number. And yet the cracked screen lit up, showing only 2 words. Incoming call. No name, no number. A chill slid down her spine. "You're not answering?" Claire asked with a strained little smile. "Is it family?" Anna did not understand why she pulled the phone out, perhaps because in that moment everything in front of her felt too filthy, too false, and the trembling of that old machine sounded like a crack opening through the suffocating air of the room. She answered. At once she heard wind, a schoolyard, a distorted announcement over loudspeakers. Then came a young male voice, so young it was almost reckless, breathless, as if he had just run across a field. Hello? Anna? Can you hear me? Her fingers tightened on the edge of the desk. That voice. She had heard it 1,000 times in her youth, during skipped classes, during late-night calls whispered under blankets, during the years when she had believed love alone could carry two people through an entire lifetime. "Julian?" she blurted out. Laughter burst from the other end. "Who else would it be? Did your nap scramble your brain? I just finished the championship match. My legs are about to fall off, and it took forever to get through to you. Hey, tell me the truth." His voice dropped, thick with the cocky delight only an 18-year-old could manage. 10 years from now, do we have a son or a daughter?" In the office, present-day Julian was sitting directly across from her. He frowned. "Who is that?" Anna lifted her head and looked at the man in front of her. The same face, the same nose, the same faint hollow at the corner of his mouth when he frowned. But the voice in the phone was full of sun, full of nerve, full of the faith that the Julian sitting before her had lost long ago. Her heart began to pound like a hammer. "Anna?" the boy on the line said, suddenly impatient. "Say something. Are you embarrassed? I'm asking seriously. How many kids do we have later? Do any of them look like you?" Outside the window, the rain slashed sideways. Inside the bright office, Claire laid a hand on Julian's shoulder as naturally as if she were already stamping her name onto the next chapter of his life. Anna looked at her rounded belly, then at the divorce agreement. Her throat went dry. At last she spoke, slow enough to be cruel. 10 years from now, you do have a child." The boy on the other end brightened at once, like a child handed a gift. "I knew it! A boy or a girl?" Anna stared straight at the present-day Julian, whose patience was beginning to fray. "A boy," she said, "but not with me." Silence fell on both ends of the line. The 18-year-old boy sounded dazed. "What did you say?" Across from her, Julian shot to his feet. "Anna, what are you doing?" She did not answer him. After a few seconds of roaring wind, the younger voice returned, hoarse now. "I couldn't hear you. Say it again." Anna bent down and signed her name in one hard, decisive stroke. "I'm saying," she told the phone, "that 10 years from now, you'll have a son with another woman, and I'm the one signing the divorce papers." The pen rolled across the desk. On the call, the breathing on the other end turned heavy, as if someone had been struck square in the chest. In the room, Julian stepped forward as if to snatch the phone from her hand, but Anna had already risen and moved back. "Let the lawyer handle the rest," she said, her voice strangely calm. "I don't need anything else." Then she ended the call. But the phone did not go dark. The screen stayed lit, like a stubborn little eye staring up at her in the center of her palm. And Anna knew, somehow, impossibly, that time itself had just called her 10 years too late. Chapter 2. The third person who had always been there. Anna walked out of the building into the rain. No one followed. It was almost laughable. 12 years earlier, all it had taken was a sulk and a turned back for Julian to pedal halfway across the city to make her smile again. Now she had signed the divorce papers, and he let her step out into the street alone, as though she had merely finished an administrative errand. She walked almost 2 kilometers before remembering she did not have an umbrella. Rain soaked her hair and plastered her blouse to her skin. The cold cleared her head. By the time the phone in her hand began vibrating again, she was standing beneath the narrow overhang of a shuttered shop. The same cloudy screen, the same nameless incoming call. Anna stared at it for a few seconds, then answered. "Where are you?" The teasing tone was gone from the boy's voice. After a long silence, it had turned taut, angry, frightened. "I called you 17 times. What was that nonsense you said? A child with another woman? Divorce? You're joking, right?" Behind him, she could hear motorbikes, boys shouting Julian's name, the old field somewhere nearby where the walls were washed in faded yellow paint and summer afternoons always smelled of sunlight baked into cement. Anna closed her eyes. She had once believed that if she could ever speak to 18-year-old Julian again, she would ask why he had changed, why the person who had once treated her like his whole world could later watch her cry without even wincing. But now that she was hearing that voice again, she felt something heavier than anger. She felt tired. "How old are you?" she asked. "What is wrong with you?" he snapped. "I'm 18. Finals are in 2 months. Why are you asking like you don't know?" 18. That meant the voice on the other end belonged to the last summer of school. It meant that everything was still intact, the notes she hid in her desk, the whistle that called his football team to practice, the evenings they argued because he got jealous of boys who brought her homework and made up over iced tea outside the school gate. It meant Claire, at that point, was still just a quiet classmate in the back row with worn shoes and a faded uniform. Anna let out a dry laugh. "I see." "What is that tone supposed to mean?" young Julian demanded. "Look, I don't believe you. How could we ever get divorced? If you're making things up to scare me, pick another game." "Do you think 10 years is a long time?" Anna leaned back against the wall and stared into the curtain of rain. "Long enough for promises to change color? Long enough for what you think will last forever to turn out to belong only to youth?" He fell silent. A moment later, his voice came back softer. "Are you crying?" The question caught her off guard. Back then, Julian could always tell. Even the smallest hitch in her breath gave her away. They used to talk for hours with their phones hidden under blankets until the batteries died. In those years, she had thought she was loved beyond doubt. "Did you fight with your parents this afternoon? Did the homeroom teacher bring up college applications again? Anna, don't scare me like this. I hate hearing you sound like that." She almost laughed. He had no idea how much more frightening the future was than anything he was imagining. "Are you still at the field?" "Yeah." "There's a new vending machine to the left of the stands." "Yes." "If you turn around now, you'll see Claire Lane standing behind the light pole with a box of medicine for bruises." Noise on his end, footsteps, then after a few seconds, his stunned voice. "How did you know that?" Anna clenched her hand until her nails bit into her palm. She remembered that afternoon perfectly. Julian had taken a hard hit during the match. One knee was scraped raw, and his cheek had already started to bruise. Anna had been delayed in a meeting for the academic team. When she finally reached the field, she saw Claire standing at a distance with medicine and a bottle of water in her arms. Julian had not noticed her at all. He had only seen Anna, whistled once, and grinned. "My girlfriend's here." Back then, Anna had thought nothing of it. She had never imagined that some people could stand at the edge of a story for years, waiting for the smallest crack to slip through. "Are you spying on me?" young Julian asked, half joking but no longer at ease. "I'm asking one last time, were you telling the truth or not?" "You want the truth?" "Yes." "Then yes, it's true." Rain drummed against the metal awning. On the other end, he drew a sharp breath, steadying himself. "Fine. Then tell me, if 10 years from now we're divorced, why?" Anna lifted her face toward the gray sky. She had asked herself that same question for 2 years, from the first time she found messages in her husband's phone that felt wrong, to the day she saw him step out of an obstetrics clinic beside Claire. Why? Because they had married too early? Because love at 18 could not outlast money, ambition, and the wear of ordinary days? Because she loved through memory while he loved through sensation? Or because Julian had always been the kind of person who thrived on pursuit and passion, but when love needed patience to be protected, his hands grew tired and he let go? "Because you betrayed me," she said. His answer came instantly. "No." "There, you asked, and now you don't believe me." It's not that I don't believe you, he spoke too quickly. I don't believe I would do that. I would never knowingly make you cry over something like that. Anna laughed without sound. Don't swear on your life. 10 years from now, you're doing just fine. Anna! His voice jumped high enough to shake. I don't know what you're going through, but if this is really the future, then I can change it. The words left her motionless. Could he? If the person on the other end really was 10 years younger, then maybe one different choice, one different sentence, one moment of not turning towards someone else might have changed the life she was standing inside. And yet she remembered the papers she had just signed, the composed face of the man in the office, Claire's hand on his shoulder, like a seal pressed onto the years Anna had been pushed out of. She was too tired to believe in miracles. Don't say things you don't understand. She was about to end the call. Naya. He used the nickname only he ever called her by, and suddenly his voice was very quiet. Give me one answer. 10 years from now, do you still love me? An old memory flashed before her. She was 19, burning with fever, sneaking out of the dorm because Julian had been waiting at the gate since evening. He had wrapped her in his team jacket, carried her up the hill behind campus, and scolded her the whole way for being stubborn. Lying against his back, smelling soap and sunshine in the collar of his shirt, she had felt so safe that she thought one back like that might be enough for an entire life. If he had asked the girl she was then, the answer would have been yes, to the point of ruin. If he was asking the woman she was now, Anna looked down at her rain-soaked shoes and took a long time to answer. I don't know. Then she hung up. This time the phone finally went dark, her own face reflected dimly in the cracked screen. She took a taxi back to the apartment. Julian's things were still everywhere. Shirts, watches, trophies, professional books, custom-made suits, and the large framed wedding photograph resting on the fake mantle. In the picture, she wore a fitted wedding gown, and Julian looked at her with such tenderness that anyone would have believed they were the flawless proof that love could survive the years. She turned the frame face down against the wall. Near midnight, the doorbell rang. Anna opened it and found Claire in the hallway. She was wearing no makeup. Pregnancy had drained the color from her face. Yet the house clothes she wore were more expensive than anything she used to dream about owning. People acquired things in many different ways. I came to pick up some of Julian's things, Claire said, biting her lip. He said you didn't want to see him, so he asked me to come. Anna leaned against the doorframe. He couldn't come himself? His stomach is acting up. Claire's eyes shifted away. After what you said this afternoon, he smoked a lot. Anna let out a cool laugh. And that has something to do with me? Claire was quiet for a moment, then said in a low but clear voice, You can hate me, but I hope you won't make this harder for him. Harder. Anna looked at the woman before her. 10 years ago, Claire had lowered her head whenever she passed by, almost like a shadow. Now she had learned to stand straight, speak plainly, and protect the man who had become hers. Who do you think made life harder for whom? Anna asked. You understand what I mean. Claire drew a careful breath. He still cares about you in his own way. If he didn't, he wouldn't have let you keep this apartment as long as he did. But my baby is almost here. I don't want him being pulled back into the past all the time. The sentence made Anna feel sick, not with jealousy, with the sudden realization that in their story she had already been reassigned, gently and legally, to the role of the past. She stepped aside and pointed at the carton stacked in the living room. His things are there. Take all of them. Claire walked in. As she passed the bookshelf, she paused at the wedding photograph Anna had turned over. You were very happy with him once, weren't you? Anna did not answer. I used to hate you, Claire said unexpectedly. Back in high school. You were pretty, brilliant, well-off, and Julian orbited you like the sun rose because you let it. You have no idea how long I watched the two of you." Anna turned sharply. Claire smiled, but sadness sat underneath it. Later, I understood something. Things that look beautiful from the outside aren't always built to last. The way people love at 18 is different from the way they love at 30. Then she bent to lift the first box. A cold wave of anger rose through Anna, not because of the half-hidden triumph in Claire's words, but because she had spoken half a truth. Love at 18 and love at 30 were not the same. The problem was that some people changed by growing up, and some changed by switching to whoever still made them feel admired. That night, after Claire left, Anna sat alone on the bare floor. At nearly 1 in the morning, the old phone lit up again. This time, it was not a call, it was a message. "I can't sleep. Tell me what I have to do so I don't lose you."
Chapter 3. A Summer Turned Upside Down. Anna did not answer the message right away. She left the phone on the table, made coffee, and opened all the curtains to watch a pale dawn spill into the apartment. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, 2 versions of Julian overlapped in her mind. One standing under a school window with a football tucked under his arm and sunlight all over his face. The other sitting in a cold office telling her, "We haven't fit together for a long time." At 8 in the morning, another message came. "I mean it, Anna. If the future is really as bad as you said, I don't want to walk into it. At least tell me when I first went wrong." She stared at those lines for a very long time. The impulsive, wordy, no-way-back style was unmistakably his at 18. Years later, once adulthood had trained all the edges out of him, Julian texted in short, controlled statements. "I'll be late. Eat first. Don't wait up. No need." Perhaps people started aging long before their hair ever turned gray. At last, Anna picked up the phone and typed back. "You went wrong the moment you thought being loved was enough. The moment you thought winning me meant you would know how to keep me. The moment you treated promises as things you only had to say while your feelings were high." The instant the message delivered, the phone rang. Anna answered but said nothing. "Where are you? And why are you talking like you're 80 years old?" "At home." "What home?" "The home 10 years from now." He gave a strained laugh, still not fully believing. "Fine, then what's in it?" Anna looked around. The apartment felt emptier after the previous night's clearing. Several pairs of men's shoes were gone from the rack. Only one glass and a wilted vase remained in the kitchen. "A walnut dining table I chose after visiting 6 stores. A bookshelf full of architecture books you bought and never finished. A painting I hated and you insisted on hanging because you said it matched the room. And—" She stopped. "A lot of things that looked like a home, but turned out to be only furniture." Silence. "What does the future me do for work?" he asked finally. "Architect. You start your own firm." He whistled. "That sounds impressive. What about you?" "Editor." "I knew it." His voice warmed at once. "You're too good with words not to do something with writing." Something tightened quietly inside her. At 18, Julian was the one who understood her dreams best. She loved writing, loved reading, loved the smell of new paper, loved the feel of a sentence sharpened into place. Julian loved drawing, loved skylines, loved telling her that one day he would build his mother a house with a skylight and Anna a kitchen full of morning sun. Dreams always looked better before life forced them into shape. "Do you still have the teddy bear I gave you?" he asked suddenly. Anna turned her head toward the cabinet on the balcony. A small white teddy sat there, wearing a blue ribbon that had long since faded. Julian had bought it with his prize money after a city football tournament, then pretended to complain that she liked useless things.
"Yes. See?" he said, a smile in his voice, as if he had found proof strong enough to save them. "If you still keep things like that, how can you say you don't love me?" Anna wanted to ask herself the same question. If she no longer loved him, why had she kept the bear? remembered his birthday by heart, carried every small turning point in their shared past. But love was not just memory carefully preserved. It was also what you felt when you looked at the person in front of you now, and that feeling had broken in her long ago. "Keeping something doesn't mean wanting to go back," she said. Young Julian sighed in frustration. "You've changed a lot." "So will you." "I won't." "You will." She pressed each word. "No one stays 18. At that moment, she heard voices on his end, calling his name, someone shouting about going to an internet cafe. He covered the receiver, yelled something back, then lowered his voice again. "Can I call you tonight?" "What for?" "You can tell me about the future." A pause. "And about me. I want to know how I became someone you hate." Anna was about to refuse. Then a thought passed through her. If she kept talking, if she kept handing the truth back through the years, could it really make him different? "All right," she said. That night the call lasted almost 2 hours. He asked everything. Did his mother still complain about her back? Which university did he get into? Had Anna ever written a book? What year did they marry? Where did they live? Did they have a dog? She answered some things, hid others, avoided the hardest ones. When he asked, "Did you cry on our wedding day?" she said, "Yes." He laughed with satisfaction. Then it must have been happy. But she did not tell him that she had cried because her mother had died 3 months earlier, because the future ahead of her felt too wide, and because for a brief moment, when the groom bent to kiss her before a crowd, there had been something unfamiliar on his face. Sometimes they fell silent and simply listened to each other breathe. In that silence, Anna found herself remembering countless tiny things. The first lunch they shared in the cafeteria, when Julian picked every carrot out of her rice box because she hated them. The day he climbed the wall by the girls' dorm just to bring her a flash drive full of exam notes. The time they fought because a boy from the physics track gave her a book and Julian stood in the rain for 3 hours waiting for her to forgive him. People usually did not die from one great wound. Love probably didn't either. It died by way of hundreds of smaller things, which is why later, when you looked back, you could still unearth a mountain of tenderness and yet be unable to save what had gone. On the third night, young Julian texted, "Mock math exam tomorrow. How many points do you think I'll get?" Anna laughed for the first time in days. After that, she began replying more often. Sometimes with a short message, sometimes with a midnight call. It seemed the old phone could catch only one signal from only one person in only one stretch of time, the summer when Julian was 18. He told her about the football team nearly being dissolved because the school had cut funding, about his father insisting he apply somewhere practical instead of art school, about Claire offering him medicine again and him refusing it, about classmates betting that he and Anna would obviously end up married because you two look like the kind who are born to drive each other crazy and still never manage to separate. Anna listened and sometimes answered with no more than an Then one evening he asked, 10 years from now, when did I start loving her? Anna knew exactly who he meant. She sat curled on the sofa, looking at yellow light spilled across the window glass. I don't know. Maybe when you started liking the feeling of being admired? Maybe when she changed and showed up in front of you in a new shape? Maybe when you got tired of wondering what I was thinking, wanting, needing? I wouldn't get tired of you. Not now. Not later either. Don't be so certain. I hate it when you talk like you've already read the whole story of my life. He sounded irritated. You know what kind of person I am, don't you? She fell quiet. She did. She knew he was hot-tempered but sincere, proud but soft-hearted, competitive but always ready to defend the person he loved.
She also knew those same qualities, if never tempered by adulthood, could harden into arrogance, control, and an endless hunger for emotional validation. "That is exactly why I'm afraid," she said at last. For the first time, he had no answer. A week after the divorce papers were signed, Anna got a message from her best friend Sophie Hart. "Class reunion on Saturday. I already confirmed for you. Don't hide." Anna looked at the words and felt her throat tighten. High school reunion, the place where everyone would see her as Julian's ex-wife and the background character in his new story with Claire. That evening, young Julian called as if he sensed her unease. "You're upset. How can you tell? Your voice is shorter than usual." Then, with childish confidence, "I know you by heart." Anna leaned against the window. "The class reunion is next week." "Then go. The future you will be there. Claire, too." A beat of silence, then a hard inhale. "I'm going with you." She laughed beside herself. "How exactly?" "I don't know." He laughed too, then turned serious. "But if I were there, I wouldn't let anyone make you feel small." The sentence was so familiar that Anna lowered her eyes. At 18, she believed he could do anything. Now she knew that in the end, the only person who could stop others from diminishing you was yourself. "Julian," she said. "Yeah? If one day you stop loving me the way you do now, tell me before anything else. There won't be a day like that. If there is." He was silent for so long that she thought the line had dropped. Then he said, "If there is, I'll tell you." Anna never reminded him of that promise. By then, she had lived long enough to know that some promises were true the moment they were spoken. The tragedy was that the person who spoke honestly at 18 could not guarantee who he would be at 30.
Chapter 4. The First Real Crack. In the days that followed, Anna felt as though she were living in two summers at once. By day, there was the city of the present, lawyers calling to confirm the court date, the bank sending statements, Sophie texting every few hours to make sure Anna had actually eaten. Present-day Julian sent a few short messages too, nearly all about missing documents or formalities that still needed handling. Every exchange was polite, precise, and bloodless, correspondence between two former partners who had ceased to share anything private. By night, there was the schoolyard 10 years earlier, cicadas screeching outside the dorm windows, and young Julian on the line, buoyant and restless, talking about how many laps he had run that day, how the career counselor had mocked one of his sketches, or how 18-year-old Sophie had just discovered she liked a senior from some campus club. What frightened Anna most was the moment she realized she had begun waiting for those calls. Not because she wanted Julian back. What pulled her toward them was the feeling of hearing once more how clearly she had once been loved. Every time she listened to him argue, laugh too loudly, or arrive breathless after running to a place with better signal, she remembered that there had once been a season when someone had thought she was the most precious thing in the world. People were often less addicted to a person than to the memory of how it felt to be loved by them. One evening, young Julian asked, "Do you remember the day I got punished and had to run 8 laps?" Anna was halfway through reviewing a manuscript for work and stopped at once. "Yes." "I remember it too," he laughed softly. "I actually had a fever that night, but I was happy." "Happy about what?" "Because you sat by the infirmary bed and scolded me for 2 straight hours." He was smiling so broadly she could hear it. "I thought then that if I married you one day, you'd be the kind of wife who complains while making me soup." Anna set down her pen and let out a faint, crooked smile. "That is a very ambitious fantasy." "Didn't you imagine it too?" She had.
She had imagined it in embarrassing detail, a bright kitchen, matching mugs, slow weekend mornings with Julian at a drafting table while she typed at the dining table, arguments about how to raise a child, small reconciliations by sunset. Later, life indeed gave them most of those things, except the person sitting beside him in the final version was no longer her. "I don't remember anymore," she said. "You're lying." "Then why ask?" A short silence. Then, abruptly, his tone changed. "Claire stopped me on the stairwell today." Anna went still. "She handed me medicine and told me not to be stubborn. I said I didn't need it, and then she asked," he gave a bewildered laugh, "she asked what I'd do if I couldn't marry you one day." Anna sat up straighter. "What did you say?" "I told her that wasn't going to happen. And then?" "And then she looked at me like an idiot." He laughed again, but the laughter faded quickly. "Anna, do you think people really change because of what other people keep saying to them?" Anna did not answer immediately.
In her memory, Claire had always been quiet, always standing at the edge of groups, but people like that often saw more than anyone guessed. Perhaps she had watched Julian for years, long enough to understand his weak points, the size of his ego, the thinness of his pride, his need to feel extraordinary in someone else's eyes. "Any sentence repeated enough times becomes a nail," Anna said at last. "Drive it in long enough and it can go through wood." He snorted. "You make everything sound like a prophecy. Better than sounding like someone signing divorce papers." He fell silent again. After that, he changed the subject and talked about scoring well on a practice exam, about his father finally sitting down to listen to him talk seriously about architecture school, about the football team planning a cheap celebration the next evening. But Anna knew that from the beginning of the call to the end, both of them had been thinking about the same name standing quietly between them across 10 years. The night before the reunion, young Julian called later than usual. His voice sounded rough. "I had a fight with my dad." "About the school?" "Yeah. He says architecture is too hard, that our family doesn't have the money to support a risky career, that I should apply for economics instead." He gave a tired laugh. "I hate being arranged like furniture." Anna stood in the kitchen pouring herself a glass of water and listened to him breathe. No matter how many years passed, she still recognized the sound of his disappointment at once. When they were young, Julian rarely spoke about his family to anyone, only to her. "Do you still want to draw?" she asked. "Yes." "Then don't give it up." "Easy for you to say." His laugh had no real amusement in it. "If what you told me is true, and I really do open my own firm someday, then I must have paid a lot to get there." He had. Present-day Julian had worked himself numb. He had taken on projects that even older architects hesitated to touch. He had gone to networking dinners he despised. He had risked the savings of both of them to start his own office. Through all of it, Anna had been both his support and his witness, the marker reminding him where he had started. But at some point, once he had climbed high enough, he turned and found that the marker behind him looked dull, too familiar, too quiet to keep feeding his sense of triumph. "Paying a price isn't the frightening part," Anna said at last. "The frightening part is forgetting why you began." His answer came immediately. "Because of you." It came too fast, too naturally. Anna closed her eyes. "Maybe at first," she said softly. "Later, it should be because of yourself." The next morning, Sophie showed up at Anna's apartment and dragged her out for hair and makeup. "Don't you dare go there dressed like a funeral program," she muttered while digging through the closet. "It's a reunion, not a memorial." Anna laughed. "I did just get divorced." "Exactly. Then look good." Sophie turned, and the sharpness in her face gentled. "Anna, I don't need you to win against anyone. I just need you to walk into that room like you don't owe a single person an explanation." In the end, Sophie chose a simple black square-necked dress, a beige coat, and a pair of small pearl earrings. Nothing dramatic, nothing that tried to recreate the bright girl Anna had once been. Just clean lines and enough quiet steel that nobody would dare pity her. As Anna slipped on her shoes, the old phone vibrated.
"You're getting ready for the reunion, aren't you?" young Julian asked immediately.
How did you know? I guessed. You sound like you're heading into battle. Anna turned on speakerphone while fastening her heels. Close enough. I hate that I can't be there. He paused. Anna, don't let them make you uncomfortable. You don't have to swallow anything from anyone. She stopped moving for a moment. Across 10 years, that teenage boy was trying to protect her in the only way available to him. The thought was so tender it hurt. I know, she said. And listen, his voice dropped all at once. If the future me dares to hurt you more, tell him I have no respect for him at all. Anna laughed out loud. You're laughing? Yes. Good. He sounded almost relieved. Call me when you get back. The reunion was held in a hotel by the river. The moment Anna stepped into the lobby, she could feel eyes turning toward her, curious, sympathetic, quietly delighted, or merely hungry to confirm what the girl once called the class's great first love legend now looked like after a loud and public divorce. She smiled just enough, greeted a few familiar faces, and sat at a table near the windows. With Sophie beside her, no one dared become too intrusive. Then Claire arrived. She wore a soft red dress that curved around her pregnancy. Her makeup was careful, her hair loosely styled. Julian walked in beside her in a black suit. Together they entered like a couple attending a celebration meant partly for them. The room went quiet for a few seconds. Then voices rose again. Greetings, surprise, congratulations. Adults were astonishingly skilled at smoothing themselves over scandal. Anna heard every syllable and felt her heart go numb. Not because it still ached in the same way, but because she saw how life truly could continue even after one person had just been replaced. Julian saw her. He faltered for the briefest beat. Perhaps he had not expected her to come, or perhaps he had not expected her to arrive looking that composed. Claire slipped her hand around his arm and smiled toward the table. It's been so long. I get tired easily these days, so I hope everyone will forgive me if I'm not very lively. One of their former classmates nudged another and joked, Julian still has his charm. Back then, all of us thought he and Anna were going to become a legend. What legend? Someone else chimed in with a laugh. Life goes where it goes. Julian pulled out Claire's chair for her, then finally turned to Anna. You came? Yes. Then you think too little of me. The smile on his face stiffened. Sophie took a sip of water and cut in coolly. My friend didn't come here to hide. She already gave enough years, enough energy, enough health, and enough of herself to a certain man. Now she gets to live for her own sake. A few people nearby suddenly became very interested in the menu. Julian said nothing. Claire lowered her eyes with practiced innocence, though her corner of her mouth tightened sharply. For the first half hour, Anna barely spoke. She let the others revisit old memories, raise glasses, trade stories about jobs, marriages, and children. Only when one of Julian's old teammates blurted out, Hey, remember when you got into that fight because of Anna? I used to think boys like you only existed in movies. The air around the table went still. Claire gave a small smile. Really? I never heard that story. Julian poured himself a drink and said evenly, We were kids. Anna almost laughed. To the person still in love, youth remained something luminous. To the one who had changed his heart, it became just a childish anecdote. At that exact moment, the old phone in Anna's bag vibrated. Only once, very lightly, but enough to make her jolt. She did not need to look to know who it was. Somehow, 10 years earlier, young Julian seemed to feel that something was happening. Anna placed a hand over the phone in her coat pocket and looked at the man seated across from her. For the first time, she felt a real crack run through the ice that had sealed her heart.
Chapter 5. The Voice on the Other End. Anna did not answer the call at the table. She simply stood, murmured something about needing air, and walked down the quiet hallway at the far end of the banquet floor. The music and laughter behind her faded with every step. The old phone vibrated 3 times before going still.
Then a series of messages lit up the screen. "You're there, aren't you? I just heard glasses clinking. Did you see him?" Anna leaned against the wall and typed slowly. "Yes." The reply came almost at once. "What does he look like?" She lifted her eyes to her reflection in the dark glass. Behind her was the black river, cut through with trembling bands of light. In front of her was a face worn thinner by the last few years of marriage. "What does he look like?" "Like you. Only the eyes are different." This time, young Julian called immediately. "What do you mean different?" he asked the second she answered. "Like someone who has already calculated everything. I hate hearing you talk about him as if he's a stranger." "But he is one now." She could hear him breathing hard, as if he were walking fast somewhere. "Then leave. Don't stay there." "I already did." "Good." He hesitated. Then, low and tight, "Anna, tell me honestly, before he betrayed you, had he already stopped loving you the same way?" The question pressed directly against the deepest bruise. The affair had only been the last blow. Before that, there had been countless smaller wounds. He forgot her birthday but remembered Claire's prenatal appointments. He grew impatient whenever Anna wanted to talk, yet listened with endless patience when Claire described the smallest details of her day. He came home later and later, and the way he looked at Anna became less like a husband looking at a woman he loved and more like a man glancing at an old duty. "Probably," Anna said. "Love doesn't disappear all in one night." "Then what about you? When did you stop loving me?" She had not expected him to ask it that way. A long while passed before she answered. "Maybe from the first time I cried in front of you and you looked annoyed, or the time I ended up in the hospital from exhaustion and you said sorry, then still got on a plane for a work trip with her, or the day I realized I was beginning to fear telling you anything about my day because you always sounded too busy." He said nothing. Anna laughed quietly, without humor. "Funny, isn't it? People think falling out of love must be dramatic. Sometimes you're just too tired, and one day the light goes out." Footsteps sounded from the far end of the hall. Present-day Julian was walking toward her, the overhead lights cutting his face into sharp planes. He still had a drink in his hand, but had not touched it. His expression was restrained anger. "Who were you talking to?" Anna did not answer. He stopped 2 paces away. "I asked who you were talking to." On the line, young Julian heard his own voice from 10 years in the future and fell silent. Anna could almost picture him standing frozen in another year entirely. "It has nothing to do with you." Julian gave a cold laugh. "Are you done performing yet? Ever since the office, you've been acting like someone else. If you wanted to make tonight more embarrassing, congratulations." Embarrassing. He said it as though what should shame them was her behavior, not the fact that he had brought the woman carrying his child to their class reunion. Anna felt a strange calm settle over her. A year ago, maybe even 6 months ago, this would have hurt so badly she could hardly breathe. Now, watching him stand there and blame her, she thought only how ridiculous he looked, like someone who had lived too long inside the shell of his own certainty. "Julian," she said, using his name with formal distance, sharp enough to make his pupils contract. "The most embarrassing thing in this hallway is not me." He tightened his grip around the glass. "I know you hate me, but at least don't turn yourself into a spectacle. People are watching."
"Then let them watch. What else do you want from me?" he burst out. "I let you keep the apartment. I let you keep the money. I've given as much as I can. What else am I supposed to do?" One sentence, and the whole marriage lay exposed. Anna laughed, the sound carrying down the empty hall. "So that's how it works in your head. Our marriage ends and you settle the account like a contract? You've given? You think what I needed was your generosity?" For the first time, Julian looked shaken. He had never seen her laugh like that. In the phone at her ear, young Julian's voice came through as a whisper. "Anna, She lifted the phone properly and looked straight at the man in front of her. "You want to know who I'm talking to?" Julian frowned. "I'm talking to the 18-year-old boy who once stood outside my dorm for 4 hours just to bring me hot porridge, the one who pushed himself to the edge because of me, the one who promised that if he ever stopped loving me, he would tell me first." She stepped closer. "I'm talking to the person you used to be, and honestly, I trust him far more than I trust you now." Color drained from Julian's face as though someone had struck him. "You're out of your mind." "Probably," Anna said with a nod. "I must have been, to drag this marriage all the way to today." He set the glass down on the windowsill with a hard click. "Stop this. What's the point of digging up the past now?" "There is a point." Her voice was quiet. "At least it reminds me that what hurt me wasn't love. It was a man who betrayed it." She moved to pass him and returned to the banquet room, but he caught her wrist. "Don't talk as if everything was only my fault," he said, holding his voice low. "You were always silent, always waiting for me to guess what you were thinking. I got tired of being beside you and feeling like whatever I did was wrong." His fingers bit into her skin, but the pain that broke through her was not in her wrist. It was in finally hearing the thought he had apparently carried for years. So this was what he had truly believed. Anna pulled her hand free. "You got tired of trying to understand your wife, but you didn't get tired of learning someone else." Julian had no answer. "You felt like everything was wrong with me because you owed me too much and didn't want to look at it." She spoke slowly, each word clear. "So you found someone who looked at you like a hero. Much easier, wasn't it?" His face went cold. At that moment, her phone chimed with a new message. Anna looked down. It was from young Julian, just a short line. "I'm sorry." Suddenly, her throat tightened. The one apologizing was the only one who had never actually hurt her. She turned away and stepped into the elevator. The doors closed while Julian was still standing motionless in the hallway. By the time she reached the lobby, she had no intention of going back to the reunion. Sophie caught up with her outside, shoved a coat around her shoulders, and didn't ask whether Anna had lost her mind. She just said, "Where to? I'll drive." The river. They ended up at a cafe near the docks that stayed open late. The wind coming off the water was bitter. Sophie listened while Anna told her everything: the phone, the calls through time, the conversations with the younger Julian, without once looking at her as if she were unraveling. Sophie only kept stirring her hot cocoa and said, "If this is a chance to change the past, are you going to take it?" Anna looked out across the black water, streaked with city light. "I don't know," she admitted. "If I change it, maybe I never marry him. Maybe a lot of pain disappears. But then the years when we were genuine disappear too." Sophie shrugged. "Keep the beautiful memory if you want. Nobody says you have to pay for it with the rest of your life." The sentence stayed with Anna all the way home. That night, young Julian called before she did. When she answered, he was silent for so long that she thought the line had frozen. Then he said, "I heard enough." "Enough of what?" "Enough to know that man would make me furious." His teeth were clenched around the words. "If I met him in real life, I don't know if I could stay calm." Anna let herself sink back against the pillows, exhausted. "Don't waste anger on someone who isn't worth it." "I'm sorry." "What are you apologizing for?" "Because I'm him." She closed her eyes. Perhaps the cruelest part of all of this was not the impossible crossing of time. It was that the boy on the other end was now carrying guilt for a future he had never chosen. "You're not him," Anna said. "At least not yet." "Then teach me." His voice went rough. "How do I not become him?" Anna was quiet for a long time. Then she asked, "If one day there's someone who always admires you, always makes you feel important, while the person who's been beside you for years starts to feel familiar, demanding, tied up with responsibility, what would you choose?" Young Julian did not answer at once. The wind around him was loud, as if he were standing outside on a dorm balcony or on the rooftop where he sometimes went to smoke in secret. When he finally spoke, it was slow and steady. "If I forget the person who stayed beside me when I had nothing, then whoever I choose after that, I'll still be a bad man." Anna opened her eyes. The answer hurt her in a gentler way than anything else had. The boy she had loved really had understood. Understanding it at 18 just had not guaranteed he would carry it intact into 30. "Then remember that," she said. His reply was barely above a whisper. "Will you give me another chance?" Anna did not know which version of him he was asking for. She gave no answer.
Chapter 6. A Dawn That Does Not Turn Back. After the reunion, the calls between them grew a little less frequent. It was not that they had run out of things to say. It was that both Anna and young Julian had begun to understand they were standing too close to a boundary. One more step, and the past would stop being a place where she could grieve, rage, or remember. It would become a place that demanded a choice. 3 days later, present-day Julian asked her to meet him at the courthouse to finish the last formalities. Anna arrived early. She wore a white blouse, black trousers, and her hair pulled neatly back. The late autumn sky was high and cold, the sunlight startlingly clear. In the elevator mirror, she looked calmer than she had on the day she first signed the papers. Julian arrived later with his lawyer. Claire was not with him. While they waited to be called, they sat at opposite ends of a long bench in the hallway. Between them lay enough empty space to hold 12 years of marriage, and everything they had failed to say at the right time. "Anna," Julian began, "I've thought about this a lot." She did not turn toward him. "I know anything I say now is late, but I still want to say—" He stopped for a long time. "I never meant for it to end up like this." Anna gave a low, dry laugh. No one ever means to. Most betrayals begin with a handful of things nobody meant. He clasped his hands together. "I was sincere with you once. I never denied that. Then why do you look at me like a stranger?" That question finally made her turn. "Because you became one long ago. I was just the last person still speaking to the old version of you." But she did not say it aloud. She only looked at the man in front of her, the tiredness beneath his eyes, the sudden emptiness in his face, and understood something with astonishing clarity. Julian would regret all of this, yes, but most of that regret belonged to himself, the broken marriage, the beautiful image of himself in other people's eyes, the peace of youth that had once proved he could be loved without conditions. As for her, the real her, he had already missed that entirely. "Because," Anna said softly, "the man I loved would never have left me lying awake all night, wondering whether it was somehow my fault." Julian went still. He opened his mouth as if to answer, but the court clerk called their names. Everything after that happened faster than Anna had expected. A few more signatures, a few formal answers, a few nods. That was all it took for a marriage to end in law. When she stepped out of the courthouse, the sunlight was dazzling. Anna stood on the steps and, for the first time in years, felt her back grow light, as though she had finally taken off armor she had worn for far too long. The old phone vibrated in her pocket. She answered immediately. "I just finished my exam." Young Julian's voice came through, rushed, strange, alive. "Anna, my dad finally agreed tonight. He's going to let me apply to architecture school." "Congratulations. There's one more thing." He took a deep breath. "Claire confessed to me today." Anna stopped midway down the stone steps. "She said she knows I like you, but no one can guarantee the future. She said someone like you would probably choose the best road for yourself in the end, that maybe you wouldn't wait for me forever. She said if I ever got tired, there would always be someone willing to stand behind me." He gave a short laugh, the sound of someone realizing something at last.
and all of a sudden I remembered what you'd told me." Anna tightened her grip on the phone.
"What did you say to her?"
"I thanked her. Then I told her I don't need someone standing behind me. The person I want is someone who walks beside me." He hesitated. "Only after I said it did I understand. Keeping someone isn't about being admired. It's about having enough courage to walk next to them." Autumn wind moved through the trees in front of the courthouse. In that moment, Anna felt her eyes sting. The person on the other end was growing up while she listened. "Julian," she said. "Yeah? Do you remember that promise you made me, that if one day you stopped loving me, you would tell me first?" "I remember." "Then add one more thing." Anna closed her eyes. "Don't marry someone just because you think you once promised to. Don't stay beside anyone because you're afraid of becoming the villain if you leave. And don't love someone only because they still look at you with admiration." Silence. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," she took a steady breath, "if we meet again one day, in some other version of the future, don't try to live according to my pain just to correct it. Just become someone you can respect." "And what about you?" Anna opened her eyes and looked at the people coming and going beneath the clean blue sky. "I'll do the same." His voice turned urgent. "Anna, wait! You're talking like you're about to—" "Julian," she said, cutting gently across him, "thank you for being 18. He breathed harder. "I don't want to be only the 18-year-old me." Anna smiled then, and at last the tears came. "But the person I needed most to meet again was the 18-year-old girl I used to be." She ended the call. This time the screen did not go dark at once. It blazed in her palm, as if someone had poured old sunlight straight into it. She could hear flickers of cicadas, the far-off loudspeaker at school, a football striking the ground. White lines ran wild across the cracked screen, and then it went black. No more vibration, no more light. The old phone had truly gone dark. Anna stood there for a long time until Sophie called her name and broke the silence. Her friend came hurrying up, out of breath. "Done? I took the whole morning off to pick up our newly liberated warrior." Anna wiped her face and laughed. "Done. Then let's eat. Let's go." Sophie slipped an arm around her shoulders and guided her down the steps. "I booked a table at that noodle place you love. After that, we can figure out whether you want a new apartment or a trip or both. From now on, you get to decide what your life looks like." It was such a simple sentence, and yet it opened something inside Anna, little by little. 3 months later, she moved into a small apartment near the publishing house. There was no fake mantle, no over-designed painting chosen for luck, no enormous dressing room, only a balcony with a few rosemary pots, a work desk by the window, and a bookshelf just large enough for the titles she loved. She took on freelance manuscripts, returned to a few short stories she had abandoned years earlier, signed up for a pottery class on weekends, and sometimes went to exhibitions alone. Happiness did not arrive instantly. Happiness was not a switch that could be flipped on command, but peace came to her in steady increments. Some nights she still dreamed of the old football field. In the dream, a boy in a white shirt ran against the sun, turned, and smiled at her with such bright faith in his eyes that anyone looking at him would believe the future could be preserved by a single promise. Whenever she woke, sadness lingered for the first few minutes. Then it softened the way a wave pulled back from shore. One early winter afternoon, Sophie sent her a photograph from a student exhibition at the architecture school. It showed a model of a small house with a skylight. On the card beside it was the creator's name, Julian Tate. Sophie added, "Heard this project won an award in the first-year student showcase. Probably just a coincidence, right?" Anna stared at the picture for a long time. She did not know whether time had truly changed direction. She did not know whether somewhere a boy of 18 had taken a different path while she remained in this present life. Perhaps it had all been a fault line in memory, a long hallucination arriving at the exact moment she needed saving. Or perhaps a human life really did branch in countless directions, and she had simply been allowed to hear one of those branches rustle. She stopped trying to answer it. That evening, Anna opened her laptop and created a new document. The first title she typed was A Call Across 10 Years. Then she sat there for a long time before writing the first sentence. The day I signed my divorce papers, time called me. After typing it, she laughed quietly. Outside on the balcony, the wind stirred the plants into a small rustling song. Below, the city remained bright and noisy, full of thousands of meetings and partings each day. The world did not stop because one heart had been broken, and it did not return to its original shape because a love story had once been beautiful. But people could still move forward. Anna reached out and switched off the light in the living room, leaving only the lamp above her desk. In the soft dark, she suddenly remembered the first question the boy on the phone had ever asked her. 10 years from now, do we have a son or a daughter? Back then, she had answered with pain. Now, if she could answer again, she would say, 10 years from now, I give birth to myself again, and this time I will raise that self with kindness.
Hey there! If you enjoy our audio content, don't forget to hit that like button and share this video with your friends. Most importantly, click subscribe and ring the bell to stay updated with everything Zuzu Audio. Support the channel and join our community today.